Afternoon. I'll call the meeting to order, and as a bit of a courtesy, just to let everybody know that we're live streaming today, for the members of people in the gallery, and for you to be aware of that, and then welcome to the viewers that are tuning in all around cyberspace everywhere. Council wanted to be transparent, so hopefully this is another step toward council transparency, and we'll give it a go here. So we're live. It's not Saturday Night Live, but it'll be what Coaldale has to offer, I guess. So first order of business is conflict of interest. Does anybody have any conflict of interest to declare in today's meeting material? Seeing none, I'll move on. A motion to adopt the agenda. Is there any additions to the agenda, or can I get a motion to adopt today's agenda, please?
Move to the adopted agenda.
Okay, Councillor Holm moves that. Any discussion? Seeing none, I'll call the question. All in favor? Okay, that's carried. Thank you very much. Then 3.1 is special council meeting minutes of February 14th, 2018. Can I have a motion? Councillor Chapman moves approval of those minutes as presented. All in favor? Okay, and then we have 3.2, regular council meeting minutes of February 26th. Councillor Simpson. Any discussion? All in favor? Okay. I don't see Colleen Van Rolte here, so. Councillor Chapman, do you have?
Well, just on the minutes, sorry, Your Worship, I did note that just the sequence of events that occurred, particularly when Councillor Chapman and Councillor Simpson left the room at 5:40. Then you have Michelle Overbeek and Spencer Coyle exiting at 6:04, and probably that part should appear later on, where Councillor Chapman and Councillor Simpson entered back into council chambers at 6:04. So just an amendment, if we can make that, but I forgot, I wasn't scanning that far down when the motion was. So.
For me?
Just make a motion with
Yeah.
those amendments.
Are you okay with that?
Yeah.
Councillor Simpson accepts that as friendly, so we'll just call the question with that friendly amendment to the minutes. All in favor? Okay. And maybe 7.1, Councillor Chapman, you want to just deal with the Canadian Badlands?
Thank you, Your Worship. Just with reference to Canadian Badlands, more of a formal motion to endorse council's participation on their board of directors, as represented by one of our members, either Bill Chapman, Mayor Kim Craig, or Deputy Mayor Jason Avery. So it would be, the alternates would be the Mayor and Councillor Avery.
So your motion is for council to support a seat on the board of directors?
That is correct.
So Councillor Chapman moves that Coaldale Town Council support a position, Coaldale with the position on the Canadian Badland Board of Directors, naming the mayor or deputy mayor as alternates.
That is correct.
Any other discussion or questions? Okay, I'll call the question. All in favor? Okay, that's carried.
Do
7.3, on Wednesday we have the County of Lethbridge organized the ICF and IDP workshop for the area. And there's an invitation there for members of council or administration to be there. I will be at AUMA Leaders Caucus that day, and so we're looking for people that will go. Since it's held in Coaldale, it would be good to have at least one elected official there so that they could possibly bring greetings to the crowd as well. So do we have any members of council that are able to attend for some or all of that day? Councilor Lloyd?
Time is that? Please.
10, I think it will be 10 to 3 p.m.
I had Green Acres that day.
So we got, I believe, Councilor Chapman is probably out of town for the Badlands and that, so. And would Councilor Simpson or Holm be able to be there at the beginning? I know that you have a chamber
Yeah,
commitment at noon, but
I could probably be there at 10 o'clock.
yeah, I think I could be there at 10, and I could maybe even skip out of the chamber if,
Right,
with
take-
you being there, right? If you're
Yeah.
okay with that?
I'm good with that.
Could you?
Okay.
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 So then I would go from the 10 to 3.
okay, so
Okay.
okay. So we'll have Councilor Simpson, and then so we would name her as maybe bringing greetings from the town as well then?
Sure.
Okay, and then Councilor Holm, you'll go for the time that you can then?
I can do that.
And so we'll get administration to confirm that with the county, what we have arranged, and then maybe administration will be able to have people there. Councilor Avery, I didn't see you in, because you're
Yeah, I've got.
You're busy that day, right? Yeah. Okay. It's hard to, wish we had the camera live so I could see around the room too. Okay, good. So we'll move that for information then. And I think we have some of the people from the family fun runs. So is Colleen, she can't make it? Okay, so you're her stand-in today then?
Betcha.
Okay, that's good. Melanie?
Yes,
Yep.
yes, my name is Melanie Hartman. First of all, thank you very much to the council and the town for willing to put a team in again for the corporate challenge for this year's fun run. It's going to be a lot of fun again. We really appreciate your support of this event, also in this public way. So we're going to be taking a picture of the town with a sign that says corporate challenge accepted. However, because you will be combining teams with fire, I believe, this year, because we have the picture from last year with the fire department and the town together, we could, if that's easier for you guys, use that picture and then just add the wording onto the bottom.
Our communications person is shaking her head, so Kate,
Pardon? Sure. Yeah. Yeah. So I'm here today to take the picture and to officially challenge you, and you will be officially accepting the challenge.
okay, all right, so we'll just take a little pause for a second, and we'll convene right in the middle here then for that, would that be? Okay. organizing this event. It's a good event. It brings people into Coaldale and promotes healthy living, and the benevolent donation to the Coaldale Food Bank is greatly appreciated, and the works that you've done to enhance the park by the school is really great stuff. So it's a very good, welcome addition to our community. So all the best on the fun 8th annual one.
This is the 8th annual,
Yeah.
correct? Yeah.
So we'll look forward to being there and celebrating on that day as well.
Great, awesome. I look forward to it. It's a pleasure to volunteer in this way, especially when we have so much support from our community.
Yes, thank you very much. Thanks for bringing the little people out and joining us.
Thanks.
Yeah, okay, good.
Okay. Lana, can I hand this off to you? At the front? Okay, thanks.
All right, and then we have our next delegation, and, well, we're a little bit early maybe, but we do have, we have the Chinook Arch here, don't we? Not yet? Okay. Maybe we'll just try. Well, 7.2 is the Southern Alberta Emergency Management Resource Sharing Agreement, and Mark is here to address that.
Good afternoon, Mr. Mayor, councillors. Yes, I'd like to bring to your attention, request approval from council regarding the Southern Alberta Emergency Management Resource Sharing Agreement. Next slide, please. So that's, yeah, so same thing I just mentioned. So next, please. So basically a little bit of background on this agreement. So in 2007, there was the City of Lethbridge took initiative to set up an agreement for the sharing of equipment and other resources with mutual aid for larger scale emergencies. So in 2016, again, there was a decision made by the committee to update the agreement and to add some more parts to it, which we'll cover in a second. And so up to this point, there's been 16 communities have ratified this agreement. So bringing it to the council today to see if we can get approval for it as well. Next, please. So basically, this agreement is much more comprehensive in scope. It's now following best practices based on for emergency management. It'll only be used for type 1, 2, and 3 emergency incidents. So I know you all remember your incident command system. So these are the very large emergencies or disasters that we would have in the town. So these are not your motor vehicle collisions or some of the smaller things that happen. It wouldn't apply for that. In the agreement, it has a standardized resource request system. The forms are there, so it standardizes it so everybody understands what is required. It also has the delegated authority. So before, if we had to have somebody come in from outside the town to take over, we'd want to make sure they have delegated authority to do so. Especially if they're starting to spend a lot of money or they're making some big decisions or making some big recommendations for some major decisions. So it has that in it as well. And bottom line, the town, for right now, we're making great strides in our emergency management program with a lot of training and courses. However, the fact still remains that we only have a limited number of staff and resources that are available to respond to these bigger events. So we will need to rely on our neighbors for their help, either in the form of equipment or the form of personnel or what have you. So my recommendation is that we do need to sign this agreement so that we are as prepared as we can be to respond and then recover more efficiently from these type of emergencies or disasters. Next, please. So basically, I don't have a lot more to present. You had the staff report, basically option 1 and 2. So option 1 is that you do approve this agreement. The City of Lethbridge is the administrative coordinator for this, so we would, if you would wish, you may approve it, and then we will send a letter off to the city saying that we're part of the agreement. Or option 2 is that you do not approve the agreement. Are there any questions you may have?
Any questions through the mark on Councillor Avery?
Thank you, Worship. Can I refer to my phone? I got my notes on there.
Sure.
Thank you. So I've got a number of questions. Number 14, the insurance. It was my understanding when we go out and work mutual aid or respond as a responding agency under the request that we are still working for our municipality. Is that correct? Because number 14 doesn't read that way to me.
Yeah, so if I just get you to repeat your question, Councilor
Okay.
Avery, one more time, please.
So
Wanna
when
make
we
sure I understand.
respond, for example, the Keno, or when we responded, they're still employees of the town and under our insurance.
That's correct.
And so I'm just wondering why this agreement would be stating, we must carry this liability. That should be a council and administrative decision, not a mutual aid or an agreements decision.
Okay, and I don't have an answer to that question. I have to take that one away
Okay,
and review it.
Thank you. And then we've got other agreements in place with other municipalities. Would this supersede that agreement? Or would those agreements then be null and void if we all signed on to one agreement?
My understanding is that this agreement would be in effect for those type 1, 2, and 3 incidents, and the smaller incidents, the other agreements would be still in effect.
Okay, thank you. That's it.
So then, with the town's liability insurance, would maybe this question through to our CFO, Michelle, what our personal liability limit is for town employees and
I would have to look.
would it be in that magnitude probably, or?
I'm not sure.
Oh, okay. And Councilor Avery?
One more question. I noticed that it refers to pay schedule, but it's got no fees on that pay schedule. It refers to Alberta Transportation or Minister of Infrastructure and Transportation. So are all parties willing to charge that same $6.15 per hour for their units, or was there going to be different fee schedules for different municipalities, as some departments are unionized and some are not unionized?
Yeah, so through the chair to Councilor Avery, yes. So there will be probably, well, not probably, there will be increased costs certainly from the city of Lethbridge. However, during these types of events, we are going to need some equipment, we're going to need some personnel. We're going to have to pay the cost. It is on a cost recovery basis. There is a provision in the Annex B where we could go to, if there is a dispute, we would go to the Alberta Ministry of Infrastructure and Transportation guidelines. So if we had to go to that, we would go to it, and we would argue the case that way. But yes, there will be, if we ask for resources from some of the partners of this agreement, there may be higher costs than what is listed in the Alberta Ministry of Infrastructure and Transportation guidelines. But my point is that we'll need that equipment, we'll need those personnel to solve the issue. So.
Any further questions? Councilor Chapman?
Thank you, Worship. Mark, the top 3 incidences, would they be included under a state of emergency, or are they excluded from a state of emergency?
Through the chair to Councillor Chapman, if we had this type of an emergency or disaster, we would be declaring a state of local emergency. These are these big events that are going to take a lot of coordination to solve. It's going to take several operational periods, so that means several days probably or longer. And so our staff and our resources are limited, and we would need some assistance to help us get through these things.
Just a follow-up question, Your Worship. The presentation that was made with yourself and I think Sherry Van Ryn was part of that a while ago with Alberta Health. Is that part of this coordination or not?
I'm terribly sorry, I don't recall with Sherry Van Ryn, the
Well,
presentation.
She would have been it was the form that I forgot to bring it along, but it was a form that I gave you with regards to some of that coordination component.
Right, so yes, so through the chair to Councillor Chapman, that would not be, this would be signatories of this agreement would be municipalities only. So
Okay.
Alberta Health Services would be part of our agency, they would be helping us out as well,
Okay,
but this would be between municipalities.
all right. Thank you.
Does anybody care to act on the report? Either option?
I'll just ask a further question before the motion is made. Has this request is being presented to other municipalities in our area as well? And has there been their responses?
Through the chair to Councillor Chapman, yes, it has. And I checked this morning, there's been 16 other communities that have signed on to this agreement.
And they are agreeable to the fee structure and everything else that's included?
I would have to assume so. They signed on, so.
Right. I'll make a motion that council approve the SAEMRSA and direct town staff towards a signed copy to the City of Lethbridge, which is acting as the administrative coordinator of this agreement.
You have a motion from Councillor Chapman to adopt option number 1 of the staff recommendation. Any further discussion?
Do we want to make sure our insurance is up to that level prior?
5 million?
Yeah. I'm going to make the motion with maybe just saying as long as our insurance is already up to that level. That's what
As
I'm
long
just
as
curious
our
about.
insurance is?
Yeah, because it's our insurance that's.
I think in order to satisfy this agreement, you'd have to have that insurance
Yeah.
value at that rate, at least. I would add that in there.
Okay, so your motion is, and for staff that confirm the level of insurance being at a minimum of $5 million.
Yes.
Any discussion? Okay, I'll call the question. All in favor? Any opposed? Councillor Avery is opposed. That motion passes. Okay, thank you, Mark.
Thank you.
Okay, and then now we join from the Chinook Regional Library System, or the CEO from that system, so you can come to the
I
table.
hope
there.
I'm not late. I was told 1:30.
Oh, that's fine.
Okay.
Yeah.
If I'm late, I
Yeah.
sincerely apologize. May I just hand out some information very quickly?
It's just, you are on live stream, so it's just no pressure.
Viewed by millions around the
Yeah.
world.
Thank you.
Millions.
Well, good day, Mr. Mayor and members of council. Thank you for your time this afternoon. I'm Robin Heffer. I'm the CEO of Chinook Regional Library System, of which you are a member. And the purpose of my visit is just to provide an update on what Chinook is up to for any new members of council, just to provide some background on Chinook and how it fits into your local library service. I'm joined today by Dothlin McFarlane, your local librarian. So we work very closely with the local libraries in delivering library service. So I just have a very quick, well, I shouldn't say very quick, relatively quick presentation. This is the second one I've done. My trial run was last week at Colehurst, and I told them I'd be 10 minutes, and it took a full 25. So I've gone back and pared down my presentation a little bit. So, however, if you do have any questions along the way, feel free to flag me down. If you have something you'd like more information about, I'm happy to provide more information. So, oh, and I guess I do have a PowerPoint presentation. I don't want to, there's a copy in your handouts as well. Perhaps you should prefer to follow along there rather than put it up on the screen. If that works for you, then that is perfectly fine by me. Okay. So what I'll just cover is overview of Chinook, brief history, system agreement, which kind of forms the sort of the skeleton of our service agreement with Coaldale, a little bit about budgets and finance and governance, and some of the stuff that we do specifically for your library and for your community, some of the highlights from 2017, and then any questions that you may have at the end of that time. So Chinook is one of 7 regional library systems in the province. We're the youngest one. We were inaugurated in 1992 after a lengthy needs assessment. I believe that Coaldale was one of the original signatories to the agreement back in 1992. Basically, our role is to partner with municipalities to raise the level of library service available in this community, and in fact in every community within the Chinook catchment area. There's a small map there showing the other library systems. Chinook is nice in that we have sort of the most compact region, and that actually makes it a lot easier for us to deliver some of our services, in particular the delivery. You can imagine a system like Peace, which covers essentially the top quarter of the province, and the challenges they have in delivering the services over such a huge area. So we're quite fortunate. And so in a nutshell, our role is to free up your local library staff to focus on serving the public. So we kind of take on the behind the scenes end of things. Chinook started with 22 members in 1992. Since that time, we've grown to 40 municipal members and 1 school authority. Towards the end of 2017, Waterton, the improvement district of Waterton, joined Chinook, and so that means there's just 1 municipality left within our area that has not yet joined the system. Chinook has a history of innovation. A part of our role, I think, is to take a bit of a leadership role, especially as some of the smaller libraries are concerned. So back in the early 90s, Chinook was the first system to get public internet into the libraries. We were the first system to network all of our libraries to facilitate resource sharing between the libraries. And more recently, we've been involved in things like high bandwidth video conferencing, delivering programs to smaller rural areas through the public library. Any questions so far? Okay. So Chinook is a member-driven organization, and essentially what sort of brought us into being was an agreement between municipalities. So every member municipality signs an agreement, and what the agreement does is it lays out what the role of Chinook is vis-a-vis the library service and also the role of the local library. The original agreement is still in place. We haven't found any reason to go back and open it up, even though libraries have changed a lot. This agreement was drafted before the World Wide Web, essentially. But, libraries are still essentially doing the same thing. We're doing it in a slightly different way these days. But it's proven to be quite a robust agreement. We have our system agreement, and what we do is we update that every 4 years with a plan of service. So every 4 years we go back to our members, our member libraries, member library boards, staff, and also sometimes even speaking directly to the public, just to say, how would you like us to invest our energies over the next 4 years? So that kind of gives us a chance to make sure that we are keeping on top of things and keeping up with our reputation for innovation. So our current plan of service is 2015 to 2018, and there is a copy in your packages as well if you're interested. We're in the midst of our needs assessment. In fact, we're actually pretty much completed our needs assessment for the 2019 to 2022 plan of service, and we'll be drafting the plan of service, and it'll come to our board in August for approval. And that will guide us over the next several years. The next slide is funding and budgets. So Chinook's annual budget is about $4 million. A good chunk of that money comes from municipal fees. Our main funders are municipalities and library boards. So for every, I guess probably about 3/4 of our budget, our revenue comes from municipalities and 1/4 comes from the provincial government. We are considered a public library under the Act, so the province does provide operating grants for us, just like it does your local library. We also make an effort to make the most of any granting programs that are available. So we're always applying for a CIP grant. We get grants from the Community Foundation, other lottery funded grants, any also private foundation grants, wherever we can raise money to subsidize your municipal dollars to make it go a little further, we do it. So, although we're careful not to poach from the local libraries as well. We want to make sure that they have access to those dollars too. Any questions about the funding and budget? Okay. So as I mentioned, Shinnecourage is a member-driven organization, so it's a one-member, one-vote model. So we do have a sizable board. It's 41 members, and it doesn't meet that frequently. The board meets every 4 months, so 3 times a year, which is what's required under the Act. Libraries do have their own act, provincial act, the Alberta Libraries Act, and so a lot of the work that is done for the board is done in committee. We have 4 active standing committees: a finance and personnel committee, planning, facilities, marketing, communications, an executive committee, and also ad hoc committees that we strike as needed. So for instance, this year, in 2017, we received about $2 million in funding from Alberta Infrastructure to overhaul our facility. And so we struck a building committee to essentially oversee that project. I'll just talk a little bit about some of the services that we provide. Generally speaking, the services that Shinnecourage provide are designed to maximize economies of scale. So things where economies of scale can be realized from centralizing some services. And the big one is bibliographic services, and that's kind of a very librarian jargon for anything to do with books or library materials. So acquisitions, the cataloging, the processing, essentially receiving the books at Shinnecourage, making them shelf ready, putting the stickers on them, and then sending out to the member libraries. We help the libraries manage their funds. So, every library has their own collection development fund, and they keep those monies in trust with Shinnecourage, and we help them to manage the purchasing, so they can call and say, oh, where's our budget for young adult fiction and that kind of thing, and our staff can say, oh, you've got $1,000 left to spend for the end of the year, and so all of the purchasing for all of the libraries comes from one spot, and that's Shinnecourage, and so that helps us to get a better deal from our vendors, and just maximizes the local library budget as well. Last year we spent just over $800,000 on library materials on behalf of all the libraries. And what that translates into is a constant supply of new stuff for your residents and residents in the Shinnecourage region to read. So that's really ultimately the goal of libraries and of the regional library system, is to enhance the quality of life in communities, to give people access to entertainment, information, literacy supports, and programming according to their wishes. Information technology, especially in the smaller communities, it can be hard to get a good internet feed. It can be hard to get good IT support. So that's one thing that Chinook provides to the libraries. We're the internet service provider for all of the libraries. We operate a robust server infrastructure, centralizing again services. So hosting the websites, hosting the software that facilitates the flow of books around the system, firewalls, threat protection, antivirus, all that kind of stuff is all hosted at Shinnecourage on behalf of your library. Probably the most valuable service is the help desk. So if a computer, either a public computer or a staff computer in the library goes down, they can just give us a call and we send technicians out, or oftentimes they can repair the computer remotely over the internet. Public services, often in smaller libraries, they're staffed by non-professionals or just local residents without any library training. Running a library is a complex job, no matter how small the library is. You still have the same reporting, the same policy requirements, board governance requirements as a larger library. So we have a whole department of librarians, 4 librarians that are devoted to helping the libraries work with, we help them with any operational aspect of the library, anything from reporting, or if there's a concern with collection development, weeding, anything like that. We actually will help the libraries with their day-to-day operations. Moving on to the next slide here. So there's a couple other services. Resource sharing. The libraries, one of the big benefits of being a member of Shinnecourage is that you have access to the collective holdings of all of the libraries, which is about 900,000 items. Last year, our delivery trucks delivered 800,000 items from library to library. So people are still reading, and they're still, they want books, and the libraries do share a lot. I just pulled up a few stats. Coaldale lent 10,678 items to other libraries in the region last year, and borrowed 16,477, not to be too precise. So Coaldale's a bit of a net borrow, which means that there are more books coming in from the other libraries than it's lending, and sometimes that number goes up and down. It doesn't necessarily say anything about your local library service, or I guess it means you have a lot of avid readers here in Coaldale, and they've got an appetite for books. Yeah, so other ways that we help the member libraries board with board development. It is a lot of work to run a library board, and so we help them with that. Fundraising support, and we also have been extending services to First Nations. In the wake of the Truth and Reconciliation Commission report, there was an initiative from the Alberta government to extend services to First Nations, which are traditionally underserved in Alberta. And so we have a mandate now to extend services. There is a library on the Blood Reserve, but there's no library services currently in Pekani. But thanks to the system, we can extend at least the online services and provide them full access to services at neighboring libraries like Pincher Creek and Fort Macleod. Last little point here, so some of our highlights from 2017. Chinook Arch residents borrowed 1.7 million items in 2017, which is 8.5 items per person. And of course, not every person is a member of the library, unfortunately, but it's still, I think, a pretty impressive number. It shows that people still find the library to be a useful addition to their life, and they go to the library for entertainment and information needs. 254,000 items lent from library to library, 150,000 Overdrive downloads. So Overdrive, if you haven't had a chance to use it, is our ebook lending service. We have some people that just go into the library once a year to renew their membership, and then after that, they just they download items to their tablets, ebooks, audiobooks. So that's what Overdrive is. Hoopla is a similar service, except it also offers streaming movies and video. So we had 46,000 checkouts on that, and that's an app-based service that Chinook Arch provides. 4,456 delivery stops, 151,000 kilometers traveled in our delivery vans. We added 70,000 items to the catalog, and also brought in 6,000 items from outside of the region. So if there's a book that someone wants or a DVD that's not available within the region, we'll go outside the region and bring that in. So yeah, there's a lot of activity happening in libraries. And if you have any questions about anything specific, I'm happy to answer.
Any questions through the Robin? Councillor Chapman?
Yeah, thank you, Your Worship, and thank you for your presentation. And Dolphin's doing a tremendous job for the town of Coaldale. My question to you, Robin, is this: does your organization have any influence over growth and expansion of libraries in the Chinook Arch area?
No, that's one of the things that's very specific in the Act, is that the local municipality is responsible for its own library service. I think our influence is more indirect, so we hopefully we help to maximize the resources that are invested locally. But was there something that you were? I feel like there's a question behind your question.
There is a question behind my question. Using the example of the Chinook library over on the west side of Lethbridge. Okay. Mm-hmm. That was sort of a tripartite setup between the two schools in the city. Mm-hmm. I was just curious if Chinook Arch had any influence or a sense of support towards those kinds of engagements.
Well, we support them in any way we can. That was a Lethbridge Public Library Board decision to expand that. And even though it's co-located with those other organizations, there isn't really much. They share the cost of the building, but beyond that, they don't really necessarily collaborate in any really formal way. So our service to that library on the west side isn't really much different to the one downtown. Okay. Where we do like to help out is what we're seeing is a bit of a trend towards partnership and consolidation. So we're seeing public libraries and schools in particular co-locating. So Staveley, the public library, serves also the school library. And in Barnwell, the school and the public libraries just moved together into the new school building. And what that does is it bolsters the case to getting a new school, first of all, and it allows some of the older library facilities to be updated. So that's an example where we were able to assist because they wanted to put the collections together. So it meant cataloging the $10,000 or 10,000 item school library collection. So now the Barnwell School is also participating in the Chinook Arch network. And McGrath is a similar thing. They're looking at putting the public. Well, it will happen. It's just in progress right now. So we're doing whatever we can to help that as well. So that means making sure they have the SuperNet connection and necessary computer infrastructure and stuff like that, as well as helping with some collection management aspects too. So, but
Thank you.
Were you gonna comment on the forward-looking part of your presentation, or?
oh, I left a slide off. Yes. Sure. So, and this actually kind of gets back to what Councillor Chapman was sort of getting at. So one thing we've heard from our members is that although some of our libraries are really flourishing, some are experiencing a great deal of difficulty. And I think sort of as a municipality goes, so a library goes to some extent. So, you know, in a rural area, especially one that relies a lot on resource revenue, there isn't a lot of money for public services and libraries. So, and also in the smaller communities, one thing we see is the people that are on the library board are also involved in the 4-H and the rec board and, you know, the Lions Club and everything like that. So it's the same people that are involved in all of these activities. And so what we're kind of proposing is basically to become, I guess, even more involved in the delivery of local library service. So maybe actually at Shinnecourts having programming staff, people that will actually be employed by Shinnecourts but go out and offer programs in the libraries where there isn't the local capacity. Having people spend more time in the library assisting with collection development. So actually physically pulling books off the shelf. You know, part of collection management in libraries is not only putting new books on the shelf, but also removing books that are no longer of interest to the public. And even developing a mobile service so that we can have a presence in partnership with our local libraries at things like community fairs, parades, and that kind of thing. So, you know, if you have a van that kind of looks like fun, attractively wrapped and that kind of thing, where people can go and get their memberships, say at Cornfest or at, you know, the like annual festival in Carmen Gayer, that kind of thing. You would have a presence there and as a promotional tool and yeah, just as a way to, you know, help extend the local library services where services are, or where the funding is limited. Yeah, so thank you for drawing my attention to my final slide.
I didn't want to be criticized later for cutting you off.
No, I cut myself off.
Okay, any other questions? Well, thank you on behalf of council for taking time. And would that be, do we have that PowerPoint like in our, that we can put on the website? For,
Sure. I can provide it. Yeah, I have it on a USB key. So.
good, thank you very much.
Thank you for your time this afternoon. All the best.
In the next item of business is 8.1, the annexation. You want to address that, Spencer? Comfort and joy.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor, members of council. After a couple of years worth of work, the culmination of that work is here. So if there are any questions, I've let the municipal government board information item here stand as the staff report. So if there are any questions from this point from council, I'm happy to entertain.
Any questions for the Spencer on that?
Maybe just
Councillor
a
Chapman?
quick comment, Your Worship, and thank you, Spence, for all your hard work on this project. And I think there was some communication with council in a previous email, which we received. Part of it is your steps moving forward, and I'm just really pleased with your sense of vision for the future and embracing the new residents of Coaldale and offering them an opportunity to engage in the town of Coaldale.
Well, we hope to demonstrate that we're as welcoming and as good of a town team as the county has been to them over the years. So we hope we can bring them on board in a positive manner.
Thank you, Spencer. A motion to receive item 8.1 for information.
Make that motion.
Councillor Simpson, all in favor? Okay. And then 8.2, development. Cindy, Kaylin says you really want to speak to it.
So yeah, these are the February development stats. It was a little bit slower this month just due to the weather. So hopefully now that it's warming up out, it'll pick up. And in March, I'll have the quarterly stats so we can see how we were against 2017.
Any questions through to Cindy? Motion to receive that for information. Councillor Pauls, all in favor? Thank you, Cindy. And 8.3, November bank reconciliation. Michelle.
So these are the November bank statements as presented to council.
Anybody have any questions through to Michelle on the November bank reconciliation? Motion to receive that. Councilor Simpson, all in favor? Okay. And then we have the 8.4, the December one.
So this will be the preliminary bank reconciliation until such time that the audit is complete, and then I will be coming back to council with the final audit. Bank statements at that time.
Any questions through Michelle on the preliminary bank reconciliation?
I move that council approve the preliminary bank reconciliation for the month of December.
Okay, Councilor Chapman, all in favor? And then we have 8.5.
So presented before you are the checks that were written in February of 2018.
Any questions through the Michelle on those?
Did have 8.5, right? Sorry. Did have a question on check number 72,379.
That is towards our memory, increasing our memory, and to do with updates with some of our servers stuff with IT.
Is that a name of a company?
No, it's a name of a piece of equipment.
Oh, okay.
So they've had to do some work in anticipation of our increase in our memory.
Right, thank you. Just further question, Your Worship, on check 72,434. The question being, is this a company in Coaldale, or where they?
It's a company in Coaldale. The company does our offices on weekends if we have a snow in the weekends, but they also do snow removal on any bylaw requests that are required for snow removal.
Okay, so this is separate to any other contracts that we may have?
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
If there's no other questions, a motion to receive bank. Okay. Councilor Lloyd, all in favor? Okay. And then we have item 8.6, the regional. We have just, go ahead, Mark.
Mr. Mayor, so my report, I only have a verbal report, and I do request some direction. It's item 8.6, however, it deals directly with item 12.1, so I don't sure how you wish to proceed.
I think probably procedurally we'll receive these letters for information and then deal with the rest in the in-camera portion.
Okay.
I'll make a motion to receive.
Councilor Simpson moves to receive 8.6 for information. All in favor? All right. And then we have information items 11.1 and 11.2. So looks like there's a request that we provide a letter of support on zebra mussels. I won't say the first one, but received Baron Eureka Warner FCSS minutes for information. Anybody care to make that motion?
I'll make the motion.
Councillor Chapman, all in favor? Okay, and what's your feelings about supporting the invasion of zebra mussel? Councillor Chapman?
I'll move to accept for information. I don't see any action items from this for us.
You want us to write a letter in support of?
There's a template letter to the minister in the package.
Yeah, I saw that. Using the same
Councillor
language.
Holm?
Go ahead.
I totally agree with the support on trying to keep zebra mussels and quagga mussels out of Alberta, et cetera, but I don't believe that this is a municipality's responsibility. This is both a federal fisheries responsibility and a provincial government responsibility, and I question why the provincial government would be asking us for a letter of support on this when this really should be the Minister of Environment from Alberta and the other provinces working with the Federal Ministry of Fisheries and Oceans. And so, although I agree with it, I'm not sure that this is something that we should be writing a letter in support of.
The package doesn't necessarily illuminate this, but it appears that probably this stems from a resolution from the floor of AAMDNC convention, because they're wanting a CC to the president of AAMDNC on it. So I'm just assuming that that body put forward a resolution to address it. But so Councillor Chapman has the motion on the floor to receive this information for information. Any discussion?
So
Okay.
I'm assuming that received for information, but no response from us?
I have a feeling that this is blanket wide. Everybody in the province is talking.
Okay, so you're still supporting your motion, and so any other discussion then? Seeing none, I'll call the question. All in favor? All right. And the motion to go in camera. Councillor Simpson, all in favor?